Hello and welcome to Yesterday's Airlines. In today's video, I'm going to take a closer look at a very recently released model, and that model is of the very last flying Lockheed L-1011 Tristar N140 Sierra Charlie, the Stargazer aircraft. The aircraft which has been specially modified to launch rockets, and this has been produced by NG Models in the last month. Looks like a cracking model. So in this video, we're going to be checking that out and looking a bit at the history of the aircraft. N140 Sierra Charlie was originally built for Air Canada as C Foxtrot Tango November Juliet and delivered in 1974. Aside from a month-long lease to Air Lanka in February 1992, it spent its entire career with the Canadian flag carrier. It was sold in 92 to Orbital Sciences Corporation and converted by Marshall Aerospace in the UK as this unusual launch vehicle. It is basically the mothership for the Pegasus XL, an air-launched multi-stage rocket developed by Orbital themselves, which was designed to carry small payloads up to 443 kilograms into a low Earth orbit. As you can see, the Pegasus rocket is carried on the belly midline, and the first launch using the Tristar, which was christened the Stargazer, was conducted on June 27th, 1994. Prior to that, launches had used a NASA NB-52. In the aircraft's career to date, it has launched 45 rockets, which have contained nearly 100 satellites. It doesn't look like there have been any launches since 2022. However, the aircraft is kept in flying condition and is nowadays the last remaining airworthy Lockheed L-1011 Tristar. So this is a super special aircraft with a really unique mission and an excellent model to be made in 400 scale. And that's what we're going to be looking at in this video. Now, before we do that, don't forget to chuck a like on the video if you're enjoying the content and subscribe to the channel. Thanks to everyone who's doing that. Also, don't forget, of course, to check out my sponsor, Northeast Diecast, who's got the most amazing range of 200 and 400 scale models, buys in collections and sells them on. And there's some really fabulous models at his website, and it's well worth checking out what he's got in stock, because he's got hundreds and hundreds of models available to purchase there. And when you do check out his website, don't forget to use the code Yesterday's Airlines 15 for 15% off your order at Northeast Diecast. That's Yesterday's Airlines 15, everyone, for 15% off your order at Northeast Diecast. Okay, guys, let's get on and see what this model looks like in 400 scale. Now, of course, I should mention that I couldn't resist but give this model a detailed written review at the website, yesterdaysairlines.com, yesterday. So check out that review if you want a really detailed look at the model with a whole range of photos. But in this video, we're going to be taking a look through the camera lens here, and we'll get her up on the turntable so you can get an even closer look at the model here. And here she is with the box. It's a fairly nice NG box, as you'd admit. I'd already had the aircraft out of the box before, so can't pretend I'm unboxing for the first time. But here she is, looking really nice in this Northrop Grumman livery. It's worth mentioning that this aircraft has worn 4 different schemes. Firstly, you've got the Orbital scheme, which was worn from 1994 until 2014 or 2015, at which point Orbital had merged with Alliant Techno Systems to be rechristened Orbital ATK when it wore this blue scheme with the new titles. That company was then merged and taken over by Northrop Grumman in 2018, and the first scheme that the aircraft wore is the one that this NG Models release also wears. Pretty much the same fuselage scheme, but with new Northrop Grumman titles. But in recent years, the aircraft has been updated, and now it has a new style of Northrop Grumman titles on it. Again, same base scheme, but new boxy aspect Northrop Grumman titles here. And so there are 4 individual liveries that the frame has worn. NG Models has released livery number 3, and that's the model we're going to be checking out here. Okay, so let's get the model up close and personal with the camera. I really adore this NG Models Lockheed TriStar mold. It is far and away the best TriStar that's ever been made in 400 scale, and it almost perfectly carries off the fundamentals of the aircraft, from that wonderful nose to that incredibly complex #2 engine intake and cowling down to the exhaust there. Really, really delightful mold. And you can see that NG here beautifully added on the Pegasus XL Rocket and its launch pylon underneath the main body here. I think they've got the shape of the Pegasus XL here really well done. You can see the different stages, and you can see the rocket booster at the back end, and it's got some really nice detail on it. Fits beautifully and sits very nicely when the aircraft is on the ground. So really very impressive, which kind of matches the overall TriStar mold that NG have been able to produce here. So I think the rocket is looking spectacular. The only minor issue here is that because the rocket fits across the space where you'd usually have a stand hole, you can't display this aircraft on a traditional stand. It might well fit on one of the new NG over wing stands, but I haven't got one to try it with. So that's the only problem here, is that you don't get to see the rocket that much because it's under the belly and you can't have the aircraft up on a stand, which is a shame. But broadly, it just looks really, really nice. And from the front, you can see the rocket looks spectacular too. Really exceptional, and some really nice detailing on the model, as you'd expect from NG. No major problems here at all, I would say. I do think there are a couple of print areas which they could have done slightly better with. The Stargazer on the tail is a little bit too high, and I would say that the tightening on the Pegasus XL Rocket itself is a little bit too low. But these are very minor issues with what is broadly a very impressive 400 scale model. Let's get her up on to the turntable. It is also worth mentioning that NG Models are not the first brand to make N140 Sierra Charlie in 400 scale. JetX made several versions in 2008, 2009, and here you can see the Orbital Sciences livery. Their blue box TriStar mold is nowhere near as good as the NG is. You can see the engines and the nose and the size of the #2 intake here. It's definitely an inferior mold, but it is quite old. Nonetheless, it's a really nicely realised model despite the issues with the base TriStar mold. The Pegasus XL Rocket is actually molded in really nicely. The pylon here is a little bit deep for the actual real thing, but the rocket itself looks really nice. But of course, being an older mold, it does lack some details like the exhaust here, and the angle of those blades for the stabilizers on the rocket is also not 100% correct. But broadly, it's a really nice looking release from 2008, and one I'm happy to have in my collection. It'll be interesting to see whether NG produce a version of their model with that scheme. You can see here with a comparison that the pylon on the NG is better, it's not as deep, and there's more detailing here at the back of the rocket, and the angle of the stabilizers on the rocket are also better. Broadly, it's just a much better TriStar overall in pretty much every way. When you actually compare the two together, you can see the size of the #2 engine there is much better and more detailed on the NG, much better sculpted region of the model. But you can also see when you compare the front end of these two that the NG TriStar is just, it's much nicer. It's a newer model. You would expect it to be a better finish, and it certainly is better. So it would be great to see updated NGs in this new livery, or this old livery, so the orbital scheme, but they are a really nice pair together nonetheless. And here they are together on the turntable. And this concludes my look at N140 Sierra Charlie, the last flying Tristar and the only Tristar that has ever launched its own rocket in the form of the Pegasus XL itself. A really interesting piece of technology. I hope you've enjoyed this look at this model. It's available for sale now, so if you're interested in picking it up, I think that's a great decision. It is a really nice model and well worth getting. It'll be interesting to see if NG get any more Tristars out this year. They haven't been producing as many as I would like, but they produced both this one and the Pacific Southwest, which featured in an earlier video a few weeks back, and they have both been spectacular. So even though NG's had a bit of disappointing 2025, they're still producing some really, really outstanding models here and there. But that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. It's goodbye from Yesterday's Airlines. Goodbye.